Hi everyone, my name is Charu Morgan and welcome. I'm experimenting with this podcast format for the last 20 years. I have been teaching and coaching and supporting people in a realm that could be named Neo-Tantra, meaning embodiment practices, communication, and ultimately supporting people with relationships and intimacy and sexual aliveness, including that inside of our own bodies. So, not limited to what happens for people who are in partnership. And I just have so much trouble with the social media format of keeping things to a minute or a minute and 30 seconds. And I just have so much to say. So, I am taking a chance and putting some things out there in this more longer form. I imagine the form of this will keep morphing and changing. I just thought to give it a try and get it out there for you to begin to have an experience of me and my work and how I think. And if you're interested in learning more about how you can work with me, you can go to my website, charumorgan.com. That's Charu, C-H-A-R-U, Morgan, M-O-R-G-A-N.com. All right, I hope you enjoy this episode. And one more small thing is that I really loved what I shared in this little clip, and the audio quality is not great. And my intention is to keep growing and getting better quality as I grow. So please bear with me, and I hope you can look past that and enjoy this podcast for the content. Hello, everyone. I am really kind of hyped up to talk about this piece, and I'm not even sure how to begin to define it. So I want to start, I'm a little out of breath. I'm so excited to talk about it. But I'm lucky. I think I want to preface it by saying that I'm lucky enough to work with some people who are very steeped in spirituality, in a world that covers all kinds of other landscapes, and also some people who have no interest and nothing to do with that. And I absolutely love that spectrum. And one thing that I find is true for everyone, wherever we are on that spectrum, is that there's something that we tend to do in relationships. And I don't think we're wrong for doing it, but I do think it makes intimacy more difficult when what we think somehow is that it's going to make intimacy easier. And this piece that I'm talking about is this thing where and I'm sure I'm going to talk about this in lots of different ways over multiple episodes, but it's this thing where we define and categorize our partner's experience for them. And we kind of get really into their energy and their world and attempt to change their mind, change their behavior. And then, because we know that if they would we can see this behavior so clearly, we can see where it's coming from and why. And if only they would change this behavior, then our relationship could be better. It could be more intimate. It could be more free. It could be more loving. It could work instead of being in this stuck place that we're in. And the problem with that is that as long as we are defining someone else's experience for them, and as long as we believe we're right about that, which kind of doesn't matter whether we're right about it or we're wrong about it, as long as we are up in their experience and attempting to change it, they will always feel, consciously or unconsciously, that we are attempting to manipulate them, or that we are not seeing them, because we aren't. We're seeing who we have decided they are, or how we have decided that they're behaving and why. And so naturally, whether they understand it or not, they're going to be responding to us with defensiveness. And then we're going to throw our hands up and go, see, they're always defensive. And it creates this cycle, because then we can get locked in this place of, if only they would change this thing. I can see it's the thing that's affecting our relationship and that's making it not work and that's preventing intimacy. And I can get really sink my teeth into that. And I can get even like a little bit righteous about it. And I separate myself through that from any real feelings I have, because I can just, it makes so much sense to be inside of what they need to do differently. And the thing is, it may be true that if they don't change this thing, you no longer feel like you can be intimate with them. And that piece of what you're feeling is what we really need to look at, right? Ideally, or essentially, if we want to break out of this dynamic where they're constantly feeling defensive and we're constantly feeling like we understand and can define their behavior, and if they would just change it, we could finally have the relationship of our dreams, we have to reel our energy back into ourselves and our experience if we want any possibility for intimacy to actually open and flow in the relationship again. And what I mean by that is I have no control over my partner's actions, over why they are doing those actions. And even if I have a strong sense or guess or certainty of why they're doing the things they're doing, whether it is family trauma, whether it is a power dynamic, whether it is an entity, whether it is, whatever we think it is that we are so sure is causing them to have this behavior that's creating a rift in our relationship. And if only they would deal with it, change it, shift it, work with us on it, that we would be able to get closer. As long as we are overly invested in their process, which we have no control over, we're actually the block to the flow. And so, like I was saying before, pulling the energy back into ourselves and just really stripping down, what is the experience I'm having? And if the experience I'm having, and this can take time, because sometimes we are so uncomfortable in our own experience, and that's why we have reached over into their experience to attempt to change the way they do things so that we can feel connected and safe again. But of course, we ultimately have no control over how they do the things they do, why they do the things they do. So what needs to happen is that we pull our energy back into ourselves. And once we are back sitting with ourselves, then we get to ask ourselves the question of, what am I really feeling in my body? In this relationship, in this particular circumstance of the relationship. And I have to get really real with myself about that. It could be something like, I'm really not feeling safe, and I'm actually never allowing my guard down anymore around this person because of XYZ things that I know about. Okay, we got to take the because of out of there. I am no longer feeling safe. I'm noticing I'm constantly holding tension in my body. Okay. Or, it could be, I'm noticing tension in my body. I'm always on the defense. I'm not opening my body sexually anymore. I'm having trouble sleeping. I'm feeling a lot of anxiety when I'm in the presence of this person. Period. Even if we think we know 100% of the why, because their behavior, because they went through this as a child, because they are doing this, and if they just stop doing that, nope. That part's not your business. You have no control over that. Bring it back into yourself. I am feeling really uncomfortable when I'm around you, like I can't let my guard down. And the difference between me sharing something like that, once I get clear on what it is inside my body, if I strip it of the possibility of thinking that I could change them, and I start to feel what's really happening in my body, oftentimes that's a really hard pill to swallow because we've been so in our partner's energy and what they could change because we haven't known how to be with our discomfort. We haven't known how to be with it because it might mean coming to terms with some really difficult things about our situation, about the relationship, about things that possibly will not change between us. And that can be incredibly uncomfortable and something we maybe don't want to face. And that's a really good reason to want to find another way to navigate it, because it seems so simple. Like, I can see what's wrong with them, and if they could just change the thing, then we could be happy. So we pull the energy back. We get clear on what's really going on for us if we have no control over what they're doing. And then the next piece is there's a couple next pieces. One piece is the communication. Sometimes even just communicating from, wow, I'm noticing this is really hard to share, that I'm no longer feeling safe with you. And then when I'm around you, my body's in a state of tension. And I don't know what to do about it. It's confusing and it's scary, and it makes me wonder if we can really get through this. Sharing that with my partner allows a possibility of the intimacy of them coming towards us because we've shared our experience. There's a much more spaciousness rather than if I come to my partner and say, you know what, you are always doing this, and we need to go to therapy so that you stop doing this, and this, and you're going to need to get help with that, and that, and you know, you don't even really understand this, but your family history is leading into this thing that's going into this, and you keep trying to tell me it's not, but I'm telling you that it is, and we need to work on this thing. Immediately, of course, they're going to feel defensive. Whether you are accurate or inaccurate, it's going to be a natural human feeling to feel defensive. Whereas if I share from my side of the story, I'm not feeling safe. I'm noticing I'm uncomfortable in my body when we're together. I don't know exactly how to handle this. It's creating a lot of confusion and sadness because I want to be close to you. It's just a different conversation. You also don't have control over how your partner will respond even when you are speaking to them from your experience and from vulnerability. What we know for sure is that it gives the possibility of them to step toward you. Doesn't mean those things that you think you know about them are going to change. It means there's a possibility for a different conversation, one that doesn't come from defensiveness. Now, they may meet that conversation with defensiveness. Maybe it's possible. They may meet it with not knowing what to do with it. They may meet it with a sense of frustration and, no, I don't know what to do for you. No matter what I do, you're never happy. Who knows? I don't know what's going on in the exact dynamics. And that gives you information too. So if I'm able to share from that really vulnerable space, and that takes time and often support to get there, but if I'm sharing from that vulnerable space and the thing I get from my partners also makes me feel unsafe, if that response also, then I get to sit with, wow, I am really not feeling safe and comfortable in this relationship. And now I have to face that truth. I'm not feeling safe and comfortable in this relationship. When I stay on my side or my lane and I share from a really vulnerable place, I'm still getting met with defensiveness, with shutdown. It doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter what's wrong with my partner or what they could easily fix or the kind of therapy they need. The truth is that I have to sit with the discomfort of I am not feeling safe or good in this relationship. Your story may be different. I'm just using the example of not feeling safe and comfortable. I don't mean like a high level physical unsafety. That's a different thing, and there's different tools to navigate that. I'm speaking of a situation that's physically safe, but some part of your body is maybe not relaxing. As an example, there's lots of examples of where this would come up and how. I'm just using this as an example. And so I have to sit with that. Wow. The truth is here that I'm not feeling comfortable and safe in this relationship anymore. And I've brought it up in ways where I've opened up the possibility for conversation. I've maybe even shared a need. Maybe it comes with like, I'm feeling unsafe. I'm feeling like I can't let my guard down around you. I'm not feeling as sexually open to you, and it's really scaring me. And I don't know what it means about our relationship. And maybe there's also a need that you can express. And I think what I need is for us to get some support where there's a third party to maybe help us and see if we can get through this. And maybe the need is something different than that. Of course, it's not always the same need. And then you get to, again, digest how your partner responds to that. And this is the hardest thing. The hardest thing is taking in the reality of the situation, given the truth that you cannot change your partner. You can share with them the impact of their actions. You can have things that are deal breakers for you, but you cannot change your partner. You can't change their experience. You can't change how they're approaching you. Perhaps together, through the deeper conversations, things will change. It's not that things can never change. It's just that oftentimes that impulse where we want to define our partner's experience and decide what would be the thing that would change so that we would feel better and have more flow and connection, it's oftentimes a really complex thing that our body is doing because we're uncomfortable facing the truth of what's really happening here. And facing the truth of what's really happening in the relationship, it could mean something as simple as, wow, this relationship isn't what I dreamed of, and yet so many of my needs are still being met, then I'm now going to just have to digest this particular loss. We don't have this particular kind of communication that would feel really good for me, or maybe that the relationship, I get to see where the relationship has value and maybe mourn the things that aren't there that I wish were there if I could control my partner's experience. But it may not mean that something has to end, or and then the other side may mean, wow, I have to sit with the fact that this piece is so deep for me that this relationship actually can't work. If I know that this is how it's going to be and that I cannot change their experience and I have to meet that reality, and it's untenable for me. The benefits of this relationship are no longer outweighing the harm or the challenges or the pain that it's causing me. I have to sit with that. I have to digest that, and then I have to make choices based on recognizing that truth. And that is a much more difficult process in a certain way than the strange comfort of feeling like we somehow could get into our partner's world, shift a couple of things with love and care, and they could just see these few things and they could shift those few things, and then we could have a better experience together. It doesn't mean that you cannot grow together. It simply means that technique that a lot of us use habitually as a defense from feeling some of the deeper feelings that we are feeling, that we maybe don't know how to handle or hold, it's almost never going to produce success. I don't know that anyone has ever said to me, tried to define my experience. You're doing this and you're doing it because of this, and I know that you're doing it because of whatever, your childhood wounding, and if you only did this. I don't think I've ever personally responded with, wow, thank you so much for telling me that. Can't wait to work on that and get better. then we go into a whole complex other thing of a place of where we can take over responsibility, and maybe we do try to work on all the things that somebody says is wrong with us so that we can then be the perfect person so that they will actually love us. That there's definitely a complex sidebar there that can happen. But I think just to keep this simple, what I'm speaking to here is this, it makes sense that when we move into our partner's energy and we try to define their experience and essentially control their process around that experience to create a better result for possibly both of us, it is very, very normal that it will be met with defensiveness, that we won't actually get anywhere. And the thing that you do have control over is getting more intimate with yourself, becoming aware of what you're feeling, and ultimately sharing from that space. And I think I want to complete here and just also, I want to complete with the reminder that obviously there is a lot of nuance in situations like this. And this is where, if you're up against something like this, it can be really good to get support from someone like me or a therapist, someone that you trust, who understands relational dynamics and can support you in that way. And, and this is it's always been a challenge because there's so much nuance with these things. So I'm hoping that in sharing this, I can shed a light on one possibility, and maybe that will give some insight. And also just knowing that your personal story or experience that may have some resonance with this, it may require more nuance in understanding it because I'm speaking to something general. And that's always going to be true when I'm not speaking to you directly. So I hope that you are able to keep that in mind as you're digesting some of these pieces, and if they're valuable to you and you want to implement them, just knowing that there's always nuance, there's always exceptions to the rule. And I think the most important thing about this one is, even if you're 100% right about what's going on with your partner, you still have no control over if they are going to have any interest in adapting, shifting, looking at it, changing it. And you do know that just by being up in their space, there's naturally going to be a potentially defensive response. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, maybe give us 5 stars, write us a review, share an episode that you enjoyed with a friend. It really helps as I'm just beginning this process and getting things started. I'd love to get more people hearing this, becoming aware of this work. And if you're interested in learning about how I can support you with one-on-one work, or maybe joining us for a future couples retreat, you can get more information at charumorgan.com. That's CharumorGan.com. Thank you so much again for being here.